Welcome back to Bab's Honda Repair. Today we've got a 97 and 2001 Honda Prelude. We're going to be replacing the clutch master cylinder as well as the clutch slave cylinder, and also going to be replacing the hardline with a Valix Racing stainless braided line with the necessary fittings to convert it over to AN line. In this video, I'll show you the tools that you'll need, the parts that you'll need, and I'll provide you the know-how so that you can do this job yourself at home, in your driveway, in your garage, without having to take your car to the big name shops. Stay tuned and let's get this swapped out. All right, so these are the tools that we'll be using to complete this job. I've got a pair of needle nose pliers. These actually have a 45-degree angle tip. You can do it with straight tip. Or if you have 90, I have some 90s I use a lot too. You'll need a pair of pliers to remove the reservoir line off of the master cylinder. I have a universal socket adapter, just makes it to where you can get to angles a little bit better. A 10mm 3/8 socket. I have a 12mm 3/8 socket. So the 10mm, you'll just use that to like remove some of the bracketry that holds the line. 12mm we'll be using to remove the nuts that hold the master cylinder, as well as the nuts that hold, or rather the bolts that hold the slave cylinder on. And we'll need an extension, and it'll probably be equipped like this with this universal adapter on it to get to the clutch master cylinder nuts. All right, and then we'll need a ratchet. This is a 3/8 ratchet. And then this is a line wrench. I'm probably not going to use it in this video, but if you're retaining your factory line, you'll need a line wrench so that you can get the brake lines off of the master cylinder and the slave cylinder. So got a 10 on one end and 12 on the other end. You can pick this up at AutoZone or most part stores that have tools. They'll have some line wrenches. Like I said, I'm not taking the factory lines out of the master cylinder or the slave cylinder because I'm just going to remove all of it. So I'm just going to use a pair of cut-off pliers such as these and just cut the lines. It's just make it simpler for me. But I'll show you where to use a line wrench in the event that you want to retain your factory line. So that's the tools you'll need to complete this job. All right, so as I mentioned in the previous clips, we're going to be replacing the clutch master cylinder, the clutch slave cylinder, and we're going to be replacing the hard line with a Valix Racing stainless version. And it also comes with the fittings to convert the master cylinder and the slave cylinder over to an AN line. This kit's available on eBay, and I bought both of these off of Rock Auto. These are Luck brand, L-U-K, Luck. And we're going to swap out the whole system. Another disclaimer on this car, it was previously, I guess, automatic, and they converted it to manual. Therefore, the hard line on the car is in poor shape and it's leaking. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to use these fittings. The bigger one goes in the master cylinder and it just screws in, and then we'll tighten it down. And the smaller one goes into the slave cylinder, and same process, just tighten it down. We'll get a wrench, I believe these are 9/16, and just snug them down, and it converts them both over to -3 AN. Yeah, these are going to be 9/16 if you're using standard. A metric 14 will work. It's a little tight. So I'm actually using a 14. It's just a little tight. You see, you don't have to get over crazy tightening them. Just snugging them down really good. That's all we need to do. And then these are prepared and ready to go into the car. And then once we get all the old stuff out, we'll get these two installed, and then we'll run our line. All right, so as I mentioned before, we've got to remove, see, that's the hard line where it goes into the master cylinder. Now, looks like someone has messed with it before. As you can see, it's kind of messed up, but it's a 12 millimeter. And to do that, we use our 12 millimeter line wrench. So it's probably gonna make some mess because we've got fluid in the reservoir, right? I'm just gonna leave the line on the reservoir until I get it up out of the car. But if you took it off here, it's probably gonna leak some fluid out. Just make sure you wash it off before, you know, at the completion of the job. Rinse all the fluid off with some water because the fluid will eat the paint away. All right, so as I mentioned, this is a 12 right here. And it's best to use a line wrench. Now, if someone's been in here, like in this case, and messed up the fitting, it may be difficult to get a line wrench on it because it kind of hugs it pretty tight, kind of like a socket, right? But in that event, you may want to use some vice grips and remove it with vice grips. Now, I've got a little Milwaukee 3/8 impact. You don't have to have this to complete this job. I know I didn't show it in the tool list, but you could use your ratchet. I'm just going to take this reservoir off, this 210 millimeters right here. And it keeps us from getting any fluid anywhere. So we can just take the reservoir out with the master cylinder and we can dump this fluid into a drain pan. Yeah, as I mentioned, you may need to use a line wrench to get that fitting off. I'm not going to fight with it because I'm putting a new stainless line on it. And as you can see, this car is not in the factory configuration with the, because this is the clutch line. And I know it doesn't go like that from the factory, right? So someone's put this in there. So I'm just going to cut it off. All right, like I said, I'm just going to use my cutoff pliers, such as these. And I'm just going to cut the line. Hopefully, with it cutting it, it's also going to help keep from getting fluid everywhere. All right, so now that I've started to remove the hard line, I'm just going to continue to remove it. There may be some instances, such as right here, where it's a 10 millimeter. There's a 10 millimeter here that holds the line on, so there may be some other bracketry around that holds the line on, such as right down here on top of the transmission. There's a 12 millimeter where looks like it just mounts to the transmission right down here, so we can take that off. Move this again. The gnats are terrible out here at this time of year. All right, so I've gotten most of the hard line out now. It's just a little stub left on the clutch slave here and the little piece on the clutch master over there. So now I'm gonna remove clutch slave cylinder. And if you were just replacing your clutch slave cylinder, it would be a 10 millimeter line wrench. Let's see if I can get it over here. I'm trying to get it where you guys can see it the best. All right, so you clip your 10 millimeter line wrench right here. But as I said, I'm not reusing the clutch slave. You see they broke the bleeder screw off, so just putting all new stuff on it. Get a shallow well socket for that because deep well won't get in there. All right, so I'm using my 12 millimeter shallow well socket and my ratchet to remove the clutch slave cylinder. All right, so now that we've removed the clutch slave cylinder, we're going to get the clutch master cylinder out. To do so, you're going to have to get under the dash here and remove the clutch master cylinder off of the pedal. And so I'll show you how to do that. All right, so hopefully you'll be able to see in here pretty good. You can see we've got a cotter pin here that have to come out to remove our clevis pin. All right, and then we got a 12 millimeter bolt here. And there's a 12 millimeter bolt up at the opposite corner. You probably can't see it, but it's kind of over the top on the opposite side. And then we'll have to remove those, and then our master cylinder will come out. So I'm going to get those knocked out real quick. We'll use a 12 millimeter with our universal socket, or universal socket adapter, so that it can flex. And with an extension, a ratchet, you can use your pliers to remove the cotter pin. Right, so here we can see this is our clevis pin and a cotter pin that retains that in there. All right, now I've got both of the bolts out and it's ready to slide out. So we're back up to the top and we can just slide it out just like so. All right, you can see we've got our old line still on here and our slave cylinder is still full of fluid. Now we'll start to install our new parts. All right, so to install, I'm going to kind of work in reverse. Well, I guess it'd be kind of the same when I took it out, but I'm going to put my slave cylinder in first. All right, so now I've got the slave cylinder installed. Now I'll get my braided Valix Racing line installed. Let's see. Just kind of routing this through to where it won't rub on anything such as the shift cables. Kind of start it on our slave cylinder here on the fitting that I already put in. All right, and those are a 13 for the ends of these, but I'm gonna wait until I get this over there to tighten the sleeve. I've got it run all the way over here. And like I said, I don't have it tight on my slave cylinder, so I can still turn it, right? So what I want to do next is kind of get a feel for how I want it to be whenever it's finalized on here. I'll adjust the clevis pin. I'm not going to tighten it all the way because it may have to be adjusted some more once it's actually on the pedal. I got to transfer this reservoir over, and then we can get it stuck up in there. Let's see. Yeah, starting to spill a little bit. All right. Just use my pliers to slide that spring clamp back. All right. Another thing I would recommend doing is what they call bench bleeding, where essentially you're bleeding the master cylinder, getting some fluid in it before you actually install it into the firewall. To do that, just make sure you got fluid in your reservoir, right? Put your finger over the tip and then pump it. All right, you see I got fluid coming out. So that's good to go. I wouldn't recommend doing it over your engine because it's going to spray brake fluid everywhere and then you have to wash off the engine. But so now I've got brake fluid coming out, I'll just put my line back on it to keep fluid from going everywhere. And don't have to be tight. You can finger tighten it for now. Just so it still has some, you can move it around in here. But now that we've got the clutch master cylinder pushing into the firewall, I'm gonna get under here and put the cotter pin, well, the clevis back on, put the cotter pin in it, and then put our nuts that holds it into the firewall. That's on camera. All right, so I finally got the clevis pin in, cotter pin in. I got both of my nuts that hold on the master cylinder. So now we'll move back to the engine bay and finish up everything we got to do out there, and then we'll bleed it. All right, so we'll begin by reinstalling our master cylinder here. Got our two. Well, before we do that, let's go ahead and tighten this braided line. It's a 13. All right, so I've got that installed there. Make sure we're good on the routing of our hose there, and then we'll reinstall our reservoir. It's these two 10mm bolts. Should have most of it. No fluid left. I got plenty of fluid, so no problem there. I'll leave that off. Alright, so now what we got to do is tighten our line here on the slave cylinder. And this one's not a 13. So that one up there was a 13. Just kind of winging this, guys. Let's see what this one is. It was like 11. So I'm gonna have to go get 11 to tighten that one. Be right back with you. All right, so I got my 11 now. And we'll use that just to snug down the line. All right. Don't have to be super tight. Don't get crazy with it and strip it or break it or none of that mess. Checking my routing again, make sure nothing's going to be rubbing. All right, and then this particular slave cylinder here has an 8mm bleed screw, so I'll just loosen that a little bit. All right, and now I'm going to show you how to bleed this by yourself. All right, so I just topped off the reservoir here. As you can see, it's pretty full. All right, we can leave the top off of it. And now what I'm going to do is show you how to do this 100% by yourself, bleeding the clutch. All right, so I've left the bleeder screw open here. Cap is off of our reservoir. Now I'm just going to pump the fluid, pump the brake, or not the brake, pump the clutch pedal. You may have to do it by hand. All right, so I can feel a little bit of fluid traveling past it. And once you start doing this, you'll be able to feel it. All right, so pump it maybe 5 times. Check your fluid because it's getting a little low. We don't want it to run out. If it runs out, it gets air in the system. All right, we'll keep doing this till we get a good stream coming out of our bleeder screw. Alright, so it looks like a little bit of fluid's coming out over there. This is pretty low. Go ahead and put some in it. Alright, so with most Hondas, your pedal's going to stay down with the bleeder screw open. On this one, it has a spring that pushes the pedal back up. So what we're going to do is just use something such as my tripod here to hold the pedal down, and then we'll close this bleeder screw. Let me move the camera and show you. This isn't the best angle because of the shadows and stuff, and I apologize, but just where the sun happens to be right now, and the car's not mobile, so I can't move it. All right, so typically whenever the clutch is depressed on a Honda with the bleeder screw open, the pedal's going to stay down. On this particular one, like I said, it has a spring that's pushing it back up. So it doesn't have any pressure on it per se. So I'm just going to use my tripod here, jam it between the pedal and the seat, no pressure, all right? Leave the pedal down, and I'm going to close the bleeder screw. So like I mentioned, I have the clutch pedal depressed, and I'm just going to use this 8mm just to close the bleeder valve. You don't have to be super duper tight. Just snug it down, that's all it takes. All right, and now when we pick up on the clutch pedal, well, we don't have to pick up on it on this particular one. But on most Hondas, you have to pick up on it because, like I said, it doesn't have a spring on it. But when we move our tripod here, it should have clutch pedal, a good pedal feel. And see, we have pressure, so good to go. Feels real good. So as you can see, we have good clutch pressure on that. So that's your handy dandy Babs Honda repair tip of the day on how to bleed a clutch by yourself. So now we're gonna go get the key and see if we can move this thing around some. Clutch works. All right guys, so there you have it. In this video, we've successfully replaced the clutch master cylinder, the clutch slave cylinder, and the clutch lines. So hopefully this is able to help you to get your 9701 Honda Prelude back on the road if you're having clutch engagement issues. This car, we actually put a brand new clutch in it back in December, so it's about 6 months old. So the clutch is in real good shape, just the clutch engagement wasn't there. Guys, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit the like button below, leave me a comment, let me know if it helped you, or what you do or don't like about the video. If you like the new mic, let me know you like the new mic. Also, if you like DIY Honda repair, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell so that you get notifications each time I post a new video pertaining to any kind of Honda repair. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Hope to see you on the next one, and peace.